The headline version of baseball is for everyone. This isn't that. Street Plot Scout goes below the surface. The 40-man decisions, the prospect ETAs, the draft implications hiding inside yesterday's transactions. Built for the people who understand that the game is won before it's played. Let's get into it. Let's start with what this actually means for the Yankees organization, because the headline, Gerrit Cole, Tommy John surgery, is going to dominate the back pages for the next 72 hours. But the 40-man implications, the rotation math, and the prospect acceleration story underneath this injury are what matter for the next 90 days. Cole is on the 10-day IL, but don't let that designation fool you. This is a UCL injury with Tommy John surgery elevated as a risk. If this goes full TJ, you're not talking about a 10-day absence. You're talking about a pitcher who doesn't come back until late 2027 at the earliest. The Yankees have not confirmed the surgical route yet, and the initial IL designation gives them cover to evaluate the full picture. But the moment you see UCL involvement flagged on a 35-year-old pitcher who has already navigated durability questions throughout his career, 2 seasons with significantly below-average innings across 12 big league years, you do not pencil him back in for the second half. You start building the roster like he's done for the season, possibly longer. Now let's do the rotation math, because this is where the front office has real work to do. Cole's absence doesn't create one hole, it creates a cascade. The Yankees are sitting at 85.7% playoff odds in the AL East. They are legitimately contending. That means every decision from here forward gets made against the backdrop of a team that cannot afford to absorb starts from a patchwork rotation and keep pace with a division that will not stop playing baseball while they reorganize. The immediate answer is workload redistribution, and it is not pretty. The bullpen is going to eat innings. A long reliever or swingman, whoever holds that role on the current roster, gets stretched in the short term. You'll see a 6-inning starter become a 4-2 situation. The bullpen's workload jumps meaningfully over the next 3 to 4 weeks, and in a schedule that opens against Tampa Bay 3 times before heading to Kansas City, the Yankees have no margin. Tampa will exploit a taxed bullpen, they always do. But here is where the story gets genuinely interesting, and this is where your attention should actually be. Elmer Rodríguez is coming. Rodríguez is the number 2 prospect in the Yankee system, future value grade of 50, ETA listed for 2026, currently posting at AAA. The profile is everything you want in a young arm being pushed to the big leagues by necessity rather than convenience. His fastball sits 93 to 97, with an 80 grade ceiling on that pitch in terms of pure velocity and downhill plane. The command grade is the honest question, currently sitting at 45 with a ceiling of 80, and that gap between floor and ceiling is exactly the kind of profile that makes evaluators nervous about a call-up in a pennant race. A 45 command grade at AAA is a pitcher who beats inferior lineups with his stuff and walks himself into trouble against hitters who can lay off the fastball up and out of the zone. Here is the roster construction reality. The Yankees have no choice but to find out. The 40-man picture matters here. Rodríguez needs to be added if he isn't already protected, and with the farm ranked 13th in baseball, there are arms worth protecting throughout the system. Any 40-man addition displaces someone, and in a contending environment, those decisions carry real weight. Watch for a corresponding move, a roster crunch moment where the Yankees have to decide who absorbs the roster spot and who gets DFA'd or optioned to create the pathway. The bigger question is sequencing. Do the Yankees move Rodríguez into the rotation immediately, or do they give him 2 or 3 starts on a piggyback or opener model to ease the command concerns? Piggyback deployment is the intelligent bridge. It limits his exposure to the lineup the 3rd time through, which is where that 45 command grade becomes dangerous, and it gives the bullpen arms behind him defined roles rather than open-ended rescue missions. What makes this prospect call-up timeline genuinely consequential is the window. If this is Tommy John, Cole is not coming back in 2026. That means Rodríguez isn't audition material for a back-of-the-rotation depth role. He is potentially holding down a postseason rotation spot by October. That changes everything about how you evaluate his developmental arc. The organization gets real data on whether that command ceiling is reachable under major league stress, and they get it now rather than in a controlled 2027 environment. The accelerated timeline compresses what might have been a graceful development sequence into a high-leverage proving ground. For the 40-man over the next 30 days, watch 3 things. First, the formal IL designation update. If Cole moves to the 60-day IL, that clarifies the surgical route is likely and opens a 40-man spot that gives the front office more flexibility. Second, whether Rodríguez gets a formal activation or whether they try a different bridge arm first, which would signal the organization wants to manage his workload and protect his service time clock. Third, any trade activity. The Yankees have the payroll and playoff odds to be buyers, and a rotation hole of this magnitude, in a contending season with an 85.7% playoff probability, is exactly the kind of situation that triggers a mid-cycle acquisition. They don't have to stand pat and trust the prospect. The Gerrit Cole injury is a loss. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball when healthy, and his durability history adds an extra layer of weight to what this diagnosis means long term. But the Yankees are not dead in the water. They have the resources to acquire and the prospect to develop. The next 30 days reveal which direction the front office moves, and Elmer Rodríguez's AAA performance between now and the trade deadline will either accelerate or complicate every calculation they make. The systemic question with Michael McGreevy is not whether his ERA is going to rise. It is. The question is what the Cardinals are going to do with him before it does, because the window to extract real organizational value from this moment is narrow, and the underlying numbers are flashing red loudly enough that anyone inside 700 Clark Street with a StatCast login already knows what's coming. Let's build this out properly, because the gap between what the box score says and what the contact quality says is genuinely one of the wider divergences you'll see on a major league pitching staff in any given season. McGreevy is sitting at a 2.40 ERA over 56 innings across 10 starts, 6 quality starts, whip of 0.99. On the surface, this looks like a breakout. A 24-year-old former first-round pick who has turned a corner, locked in his command, and become a legitimate rotation piece for a Cardinals team trying to stay relevant in the NL Central. That's the narrative. The underlying data tells a completely different story. His xERA is 5.86. That is a 3.46 run gap between what his ERA says and what the contact quality against him projects going forward. To put that in perspective, McGreevy has a career history of beating his xERA. His career average gap is negative 0.92, meaning he has consistently outperformed the expected numbers to some degree. That's real. Some pitchers do this sustainably through deception, sequencing, and strand rate management. McGreevy has done it at a modest level throughout his career, but the current gap is 3.46. That is 2.54 runs beyond even his established baseline of outperformance. This is not a pitcher beating his metrics through craft. This is a pitcher being rescued by strand luck at a rate that is statistically unsustainable. The contact quality tells you exactly why regression is coming. His hard hit rate against is 41.1%. Hitters are squaring him up regularly. His barrel rate against is 10.7%. That is elevated. And elevated barrel rates against are the most direct predictor of ERA rising, because barrels become home runs and hard doubles at a reliable rate. His average exit velocity against is 89.0 miles per hour. He has allowed 7 home runs already, 1.12 per 9 innings. And his fastball is sitting at 91.4 miles per hour, which is down 1.6 miles per hour from last season. That velocity decline is not a blip. That is a pitch mix story and potentially a durability signal, and we'll come back to that. The chase rate of 28.4% tells you hitters are not expanding their zones against him. They are sitting on pitches they can hit, hitting them hard, and the results have not shown up in the ERA column yet, because the runners have been stranded and the balls in play have landed in gloves. That changes. It always changes. Now let's get to what this means for the 40-man and the organizational roster construction question, because this is where McGreevy's situation becomes genuinely complicated. McGreevy is on a rookie deal, $0.8 million AAV, and he is in a walk year. That matters. The Cardinals have $129.4 million in luxury tax space, which means replacement is financially viable. The question is not whether St. Louis can afford to move McGreevy. The question is what the market will pay for a pitcher posting a 2.40 ERA in May, and whether the Cardinals front office has the discipline to sell into that number before the inevitable regression makes the conversation harder. Here is the roster construction tension. McGreevy has been a quality start machine on the surface. 6 quality starts in 10 outings. The rotation needs him to be what he appears to be. If you move him, trade him, demote him, reduce his role, you are publicly acknowledging that you do not trust what the box score says, and you are creating a hole you need to fill from elsewhere. The Cardinals would need to be active on the acquisition side to make this work, or they need to believe their depth can absorb the transition. The velocity decline at 91.4 miles per hour is the part of this story that deserves more attention than it is getting. A 1.6 miles per hour drop from one season to the next on a 24-year-old arm is not a mechanical blip. It is either a health signal, worth watching carefully given that he is averaging 92 pitches per start and has thrown 29 innings over the last 30 days, or it is the beginning of a transition to a pitch-to-contact profile that only works when your defense plays perfectly behind you. Neither explanation is encouraging. A young pitcher who loses meaningful velo before age 25 either has something going on physically, or he is compensating for something and trying to survive on sequencing rather than stuff. That latter approach only works when the strand rate cooperates, and the strand rate is currently cooperating at an extreme level. The 40-man implication worth watching. If McGreevy gets traded in the sell-high window, the Cardinals create a spot that either goes to a prospect accelerated into rotation consideration or gets filled by a veteran depth arm. The Org's farm is not at a level where a prospect call-up feels like the obvious move. This is a team with $129.4 million in luxury tax space, which suggests they would pursue a veteran bridge. Watch for any acquisition activity involving a starter or swingman in the next 30 days. If the Cardinals do nothing, if they ride the 2.40 ERA narrative through June and into July, the regression window starts closing around August, which is also when the walk-year conversation about McGreevy's free agency value peaks. A pitcher who posts a 5.00 ERA in August is a fundamentally different free agent than one who posted a 2.40 ERA in May. The Cardinals would be holding a depreciating asset, and the sell-high window will have closed. The one scenario where this plays differently is if McGreevy can make a mechanical adjustment that cleans up the contact quality, tightens up his barrel rate, improves chase rates, and gets the velocity back toward his 2025 levels. That's theoretically possible. But the timeline is tight, and the underlying metrics have been consistent across 10 starts and 56 innings. This is not a one-start noise problem. This is an established contact quality pattern that the ERA has not yet caught up to. Over the next 30 days, watch the barrel rate against specifically. If it stays north of 10%, ERA regression is not a question of whether, it is a question of when and how fast. Watch for any trade rumors that include McGreevy's name, because the Cardinals front office would be doing their job if they were already fielding calls. And watch that velocity trend. If 91.4 drops to 90 or below in June starts, the health signal hypothesis becomes more credible, and the entire calculus changes. McGreevy's ERA says one thing, everything else says another. The Cardinals have a narrow window to act on the gap. Whether they do is the story worth tracking. The Lance McCullers Jr. story in 2026 is not a bad season story. It is a 5-layer story about a pitcher whose career arc has been pointing toward this moment for years, whose current performance contains both genuine regression and genuine hope in competing directions, and whose contract situation puts the Houston Astros in a genuinely uncomfortable position given where their payroll flexibility currently sits. Let's build this out properly using all 5 layers, because flattening this into a one-season narrative misses everything that actually matters. Layer 1. Contract terms and market context. McCullers is in the final year of his deal at $17 million AAV. He is a free agent after this season. The Astros are contending, barely, at 18.4% playoff odds in the AL West, and they are operating with $3.3 million in luxury tax space. That last number is the most consequential fact in the entire story. The Astros have almost no financial flexibility to absorb additional payroll this season, which means every decision about McCullers is being made in a tight fiscal environment. They cannot supplement his production cheaply. They cannot easily add an arm to compensate for his underperformance. And they are committed to his $17 million AAV for a pitcher who is currently posting a 6.86 ERA and has thrown only 39.1 innings. The cost per inning on McCullers in 2026 is brutal, and that number gets more uncomfortable every time he doesn't make a start. Layer 2. Current season performance, and here is where it gets analytically interesting. His ERA is 6.86, but his xERA is 4.39, a 2.47 run gap in the opposite direction from what we just discussed with McGreevy. McCullers is being punished worse than the underlying contact quality suggests he should be. His FIP is 3.96. He has allowed 7 home runs in 39.1 innings at a 1.61 HR/9 rate. He has 2 quality starts on the season. He is averaging 115 pitches per start. He has thrown 18.3 innings over the last 30 days. The ERA to xERA gap tells you that strand luck has gone against him this year. Runners who should be stranded are scoring. Balls that should be outs are falling in. There is a version of this story where you say the underlying metrics are actually fine. FIP of 3.96 is respectable. And the ERA will normalize back toward the expected number as the season continues. That would be reassuring except for layer 3, which is the career arc. And this is the spine of the entire McCullers story. He has been a major leaguer since 2015, 11 years, 9 seasons of meaningful data. His career ERA is 4.14, which is fine for a durable mid-rotation starter. But his HR9 rate has been climbing. Career average is 0.92 per 9. This year he's at 1.61. Last year he was at 1.62. So the HR9 elevation is not a one-season anomaly. This is a pitcher who is now consistently allowing home runs at nearly twice his career rate over a multi-year trend. That is a stuff story, not a luck story. When a pitcher's HR9 doubles and holds there for 2 consecutive seasons, you are seeing a change in the quality of contact being generated against his arsenal, not a variation in where fly balls happen to land. The ERA trend over his career has moved upward as well. His ERA is up 0.35 from 2025, which was already a down year at 6.51. That's 2025 and 2026 both posting ERAs in the mid to upper 6 range. This is not a guy who had a rough month. This is a pitcher operating at a demonstrably lower level than he was at his peak. Layer 4. Injury and health signals. This is the element of the McCullers story that should command the most attention and is probably getting the least. He is on pace for significantly fewer innings than his career average of 90 per season, and he is averaging 115 pitches per start, which means he is going deep into pitch counts without going deep into games. That combination, high pitch counts, low innings, is the signature of a pitcher who is laboring to get outs. He is working hard for every out he records. His stuff is not generating quick outs, so he is grinding through lineups at a higher energy cost per inning than his career history would predict. McCullers had Tommy John surgery in 2018. He missed the entire 2019 season and came back in 2020. He has never been a high innings pitcher since the surgery. The 90 innings per season career average reflects the post-TJ reality. He has always been a pitcher who needed to be managed carefully. But this workload pattern in 2026, high pitch counts, low innings totals, a velocity and command profile that is generating hard contact at a 50.5% hard hit rate against, and a 1.61 HR.9, raises a real question about whether his stuff has declined to the point where efficient outs are no longer reliably available to him. The 27.3% chase rate tells you hitters are disciplined against him. They are waiting for pitches to hit and hitting them. That is a stuff read story. When a pitcher's chase rate drops, it means hitters have resolved his arsenal visually and are laying off his difficult pitches while attacking his strikes. A 50.5% hard hit rate against and 91.5 miles per hour average exit velocity in that context. Hitters seeing the ball well, sitting on hittable pitches, and hitting them hard is a concerning profile for the second half of a contract year. Layer 5. Team and market context. The Astros are at 18.4% playoff odds. This is a team on the wrong side of contending, not out of it, but not a genuine threat either. They are in the AL West, which has been competitive. The $3.3 million in luxury tax space severely limits their ability to upgrade around McCullers, and the organizational framing around a $17 million arm posting a 6.86 ERA is genuinely uncomfortable. They cannot eat the contract and move on. They need him to perform because they have no financial runway to replace his innings cheaply. The 40-man implication: if McCullers goes to the IL, which the workload pattern and innings pace suggest is a real possibility before the All-Star break, the Astros face a roster construction crisis with almost no payroll flexibility. Any replacement they bring in has to be depth-level salary, which means internal options are low-cost free agent additions, neither of which is likely to stabilize a rotation in an AL West pennant race. The free agency picture at season's end is complicated in a specific way. If McCullers' ERA normalizes toward his xERA and FIP as Strandluck regresses to the mean, his second half could look meaningfully better than his first half. A healthy second half at a 3.96 FIP level performance is a marketable asset in free agency. But the HR/9 trend, 2 consecutive years above 1.60, does not reverse because of Strandluck. That is a real change in what he is generating against his arsenal. Any team evaluating McCullers in free agency will see the FIP and xERA and say the ERA tells an unfair story, and then they will look at the HR/9 trend and the hard hit rate trend and ask whether they are buying a bargain or a pitcher in genuine structural decline. The honest answer for the Houston organization is this: the 40-man picture, the playoff odds, and the luxury tax math are all pointing in the same uncomfortable direction. McCullers is expensive, declining in specific measurable ways, and operating for a team that cannot afford to supplement around him. The next 30 days, specifically his next 4 to 6 starts, will determine whether the underlying metrics reassert themselves in the ERA column, or whether this becomes a formal roster construction problem with a DL stint as the catalyst. Watch his pitch velocity trends start by start. Watch whether the HR/9 stabilizes below 1.30, which would suggest regression toward his career mean, or stays elevated above 1.50, which would confirm this as a genuine arsenal change rather than variance. And watch the Astros trade activity, because a team at 18.4% playoff odds with $3.3 million in luxury tax space and an $17.0 million arm underperforming this badly is exactly the kind of situation that triggers a quiet pivot, moving from win-now mode to maximize the return mode before the July deadline closes the window. McCullers deserves the full analytical treatment because the story is genuinely multi-layered. The ERA is overstated. The decline is real. Those two things can be simultaneously true, and the next 30 days will reveal which one matters more. That's the read on the day. Same game, deeper read, back tomorrow. This is Streak Plot Scout. Greatness is never random.